He understands it, and he's not happy about it. And he shouldn't be happy about it, because there's never been a president as tough on Russia as I have been. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Do you believe Putin when he says he didn't win out on the election?
We're finished here. Let's go. Make the way out. We're finished. Let's go.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any intel reports to say?
Come on, keep moving. Let's go.
All right, you could hear reporters there trying to ask the president a few questions about, the president not amused, about whether or not he believes Vladimir Putin that he did not meddle in the election, excuse me. The president not answering that, reiterating the idea, the assertion that he has been tougher on Russia than any other president. CBS News White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins me now. You know, Weijia, hopefully we have Weijia there. Do we have you there, Weijia?
You sure do.
Okay, great. So, you know, we heard the president sort of backtrack, saying that he misspoke yesterday. But then, you know, this morning he's been tweeting, he's been pushing back against his critics. He has gone on the record again, tweeting that that his critics hate the fact that he's gotten along so well with Vladimir Putin, and saying that they suffer from what he calls Trump derangement syndrome. I guess we've seen this before with the president, a tendency to first at times apologize or backtrack and then kind of circle back around again to what he originally said.
That's right, and that's exactly what he has done here. Even though we saw that reversal yesterday, he is focused on what he wants to talk about, which is his belief that this was an extremely successful meeting. You heard him right there saying that no one else has been as tough on Russia than him. I mean, look, no one is going to disagree that engagement with Russia is important. It is the quality of that engagement that matters. And so far, what we've seen in terms of the quality judged on substance, it is very little. So it is very difficult to draw a conclusion that the president has that it was such a victorious summit. In fact, Anne-Marie, the Russian embassy here in the U.S. is providing more information than the White House is. They are tweeting out that the Russian Defense Ministry is ready for the practical implementation of agreements in the area of global security reached in Helsinki between these two presidents. What agreements they're talking about, we have no idea. You know, I was pressing White House sources today about this to release any sort of detail about what was agreed upon in that room between Presidents Trump and Putin. And there are so many areas that the president claims that he has started the dialogue about, whether it's Syria, North Korea, but we have not seen any deliverables. Now, John Bolton, the national security advisor, along with other senior administration officials, set very low expectations in terms of those deliverables. But now you have Russia claiming that they actually did reach agreements. Whether they're formal, verbal, informal, we don't know. But again, the president himself and the White House has not gone that far to say that they actually came to terms with one another and that this is what they're working on and here are the next steps to get there. We don't have that. All we have at this point, as we just heard from the president at the cabinet meeting, was that it was a great success. And that's the frustration here. It's not that, you know, nobody is arguing it's a bad thing for him to get along with President Putin and have these meetings. Again, it is the quality of that meeting that matters, and we cannot tell what that quality is with just a blanket statement from the president saying it was great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that. I mean, this is going to be the first time that the president gets out in front of his communication staff. But earlier today, we talked about this. He tweeted this morning that, once again, many positive things came out of that meeting, including Russia has agreed to help with North Korea, where the relationship with us is very good. The process is moving along. Well, once again, Weijia, what did they agree to? Agree to help with the dismantling of nuclear weapons? Agree to help with other negotiations. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, of course it is. But the problem is that now there's a queue. Now we have to pile on to these discussions on North Korea that have not even been clarified between Kim Jong-un and this administration. The president recently, in the past day or so, has said, look, it's going to take a long time to denuclearize, and I'm okay with that. But Anne-Marie, the problem is, even though they signed that joint statement and we saw them together, and again, the president claimed victory there, we do not have the substance, and the president is not concerned, or it seems that he's not concerned, that North Korea has not provided any details about how it plans to denuclearize. So how Russia is going to help in that process, it's very difficult to answer because we don't even know what that process is, because the president himself has not been able to tell the American public what kind of concrete evidence that he has that Kim Jong-un is actually taking real steps to dismantle his weapons that already exist. He continues to say that it is a great success because North Korea is no longer testing weapons and destroying testing sites. But the question is no longer about testing missiles. It's about all those weapons in the existing arsenal, how you're going to locate them, how you're going to control them, and get rid of them. And we're still waiting on the answer for that. So again, this second part of this, that now Russia is going to assist in that process, it seems like it's way too early to talk about Russia's role when you have not even received any firm information and commitments from North Korea.
Right, indeed. And I just want to quickly pivot back to the president sort of correcting himself, saying that, during that press conference, he meant to say the word wouldn't instead of would. Which didn't really sort of offer any more clarity. But, we just saw him in his cabinet meeting, and reporters were yelling out a lot of questions. I'm told near the end there, a reporter asked whether or not Russia was still targeting the U.S. And it looked like he shook his head and said no. Now, he could have been shaking his head sort of in general, like, no, everyone's sort of ushering everyone out. I'm not answering the question. But do we have any sort of firm clarity about what this president believes? Does he believe that Russia is still targeting the U.S. in regards to our upcoming election?
At this point, we can only look at what the president has said, and Anne-Marie, it is substantial because it seems like it was for the first time yesterday when he said that he accepts the U.S. intelligence community's conclusion that there was Russian interference. It seems like that was the first time he made the distinction between interference and collusion. And that is an important distinction because we've heard him so many times say that the collusion is a witch hunt, but he has conflated the two. And so he hasn't really come out and been firm about whether he believes the evidence about Russian meddling. And for the first time, really yesterday, he said, I do believe it, I accept it. We've heard him in the past say, I think it was Russia, it may have been Russia. But even yesterday, after he said, I accept the conclusion, it could have been other people. It could have been someone else. And so there's always a footnote that goes along with a lot of the president's remarks, including the one yesterday that was meant to sort of clarify his stance. But that still, and you make a great point, is fuzzy because while he's making this declaration, he's also following it up with saying other people may have been involved too. But I can tell you that reporters here are chomping at the bit and very excited because Sarah Sanders is having a press briefing at 2:00 p.m. This is our first opportunity to ask her these questions after this whirlwind trip, and she has a lot to answer for, not only when it comes to meddling, but also the substance of the meeting, the agreements, why the president is claiming victory. So I expect it will be a very heated conference today.
I bet it will be. Weijia Jiang, thank you so much.
Sure.
So we're going to have a lot more news, but for now, we're going to take a quick break. You are streaming CBSN.